Hello and welcome back to English for You. I'm Seb.
I'm Nikki.
And you have joined us at a very good time because we were just talking about one of the big themes in this month's story article, which is depression and therapy. So we just found out that we both have some experiences with going to see a therapist. Yeah. So Nikki, you've been to see a therapist before?
Yeah, I think it was like a year ago, actually.
Okay.
I just first entered my graduate school. So I was like having a lot of pressure and having to deal with school and a breakup. I just like kind of, I didn't know who to talk to because I was talking to my friends and I feel like they're always talking about the same thing. They're always be like, oh, it's okay. Just like, you'll move on. But I feel like I had to talk to someone professional. So they kind of, therapists, they kind of help you. They don't tell you what to do.
Yes,
but
no,
they
don't.
kind of, they kind of just like force you to face what you're feeling, like say it out loud and try to make you feel like more clearly.
Yeah, that was very surprising for me as I thought the therapist would tell me what to think. And after, I think, going 2 or 3 times, I said it. I was like, what do you think? What should I do? And he said, that's not what this is about.
Yeah,
I'm not here to tell you what to do.
They'll be like, so how does that make you feel?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very helpful experience, I think. So did you find that? How did it help you?
I think it was like at that time it was a lot of emotions and thoughts going on in my head, but after that I feel like I can think like clearly.
Okay, so you had a better idea
of what's going on.
Yeah, it can. Sometimes we do just need to talk about things, but the difference, I think, between a therapist and seeing a therapist and just talking to a friend is your friends know you, and you don't want to. You're worried about what you might say. It might upset them, or they might not agree, or they might look at you in a different way. Whereas a therapist is only there to listen. And so for me as well, I was having a very stressful time and was very unsure about some things in my life, and it was very helpful for me to be able to just go and talk. And we ended up talking about lots of things that I didn't think we would talk about, but that gave me a better idea of why I was feeling this way. And so for me as well, I'm not seeing a therapist right now, but I always think that, I would be, if I see one again in the future, it won't be a problem. I think you can always go back and see a therapist again. It's never a bad thing to see a therapist. Okay, let's get on and talk about day 3 of our article, which is going to look at the background and the themes and the author who wrote this amazing book.
Reading.
The Secret Side of Empty. The Secret Side of Empty is based on Maria E. Andrews' own experience as a former illegal immigrant in the U.S. What she created is a highly meaningful story that explores some of the more serious problems in modern society. The most noticeable theme in the story is illegal immigration. This is when people move to a new country without official permission. Andrew approaches the issue through the story of MT, a relatable all-American girl who is actually an immigrant. By doing this, Andrew reminds us that immigrants are all around us, and they sometimes have to face many difficulties. As the story continues, we find a second very important theme: depression. MT struggles with dark thoughts and a sense of loss. This is made worse as she distances herself from others. After she visits the therapist, though, we see that all MT needed to do was open up. When she does this, she finds the strength to address her problems. More people should be accepting of immigrants, so that many more real-life MTs can find strength too.
Okay, so our article begins like this. The Secret Side of Empty is based on Maria E. Andrews' own experience as a former illegal immigrant in the US.
课文一开始就讲到的The Secret Side of Empty 中文书名是秘密身份，这本书是根据 the author Maria 的亲身经历来写的，因为她自己本身以前也是一个住在美国的非法移民。那这边 be based on something 指的是以什么东西为根据，像是我们看电影的时候可能会看到片头说 This is based on the true story 是以真人真事改编的。
Right. We can now say that Maria E. Andreu is a naturalized US citizen, which means she became an American later on, which actually happens, I think, to MT at the end of the story, or she starts preparing to become a US citizen at the end of the story. So what Maria has created, what she created is a highly meaningful story that explores some of the more serious problems in modern society. Okay, so we have this word meaningful, which is an adjective, and something that is meaningful is important. When people get married, it's meaningful to them. You don't get married every day. Likewise, if the United States split into 50 countries, that would be a very meaningful event. It would change a lot in the world because the US is a very big, very important country. And that would change a lot of things. Therefore, we can say it is meaningful. Now, when we use this suffix full at the end of certain adjectives, so hopeful is another example, we are saying that something is full of something. So hopeful, full of hope. Meaningful, full of meaning. If we change the full to less, then we're having the opposite effect. Something that is meaningless, for example, is not important at all, or it doesn't make sense. In the same way, we could say that someone that is hopeless is somebody who has no direction, doesn't really have any control over the situation. It's very different from being hopeful, isn't it? From having lots of wishes and desires. Okay, so here's an example sentence, which I think would be a good one for us to remember. The 28th of February is a meaningful day for many Taiwanese people because a terrible event happened on that date.
Meaningful 是形容词，意思是有意义的，很重要的。它的组成就是 meaning 意思，再加上一个 suffix full 充满的，表示是有意义的。Actually, my sister is getting married this Sunday, so I think that's quite meaningful to me as well.
Wow. Congratulations to your sister.
Yeah. 那例句说提到的228事件呢，这日期对于很多台湾人来说是很有意义的，因为过去在那一天有一件很可怕的事件发生了。
So we also have another important word here, explore. Now, explore is a verb, and you probably already know the meaning of explore now, right? We explore a new area when we visit somewhere new and look around it. You can explore a jungle, a forest, a new city, or a country. We call this kind of behavior exploration. That's not what we mean in the article, though. When you explore a topic, you talk about that topic and discuss it in detail. We're exploring some of the important words and phrases in this week's story article. Let's look at our example sentence for explore. This book explores the issue of women's rights in India.Explore
是动词，指的是探索、研究。一般来说，我们会探索一个区域或是某一个地方，像是 People have been trying to explore outer space for many years， 或者是我们也可以说 Go exploring in the woods。但是课文这边讲的比较像是深入探究，去研究某件事情或是议题。所以说，这边作者就是想要借由写这本书来引起大家的共鸣，让大家去探讨一些现今社会所面临到的问题。
So the article continues, the most noticeable theme in the story is illegal immigration.
那这本书最明显的主题就是在说非法移民。Noticeable 是形容词，显而易见的 ，something that is easy to see or recognize. Notice 是notice 这个字是注意到，那它加了一个 suffix able， 表示说能够注意到的，就是说明显的。So what is the theme?Well,
a theme is the main idea in a book, movie, or song. So as we've seen with today's article, the theme is immigration. A lot of the story about MT's fears and problems that she faces are because she comes from another country. It would be very different if MT was an American citizen or a legal immigrant. She could solve some of these problems much more easily. We can also see that her father is aggressive to her and her mother. So we could also say that domestic abuse, 家庭暴力, is another important theme. So there is a slight difference between themes and another word that you might come across, genre. Now, a genre is not an idea in a story or a book. It is a type of book. So while a theme could be immigration, a genre could be a horror, a comedy, or an action. So these are different types of books or movies. Let's look at an example sentence now. One of the themes in this song is the love between a mother and daughter.
Theme 是名词，指的是主题，通常是指在书籍、电影或者是谈话里面所出现的东西。那电影的主题曲呢，我们就会说它是 theme song。那所以这本书几乎都是围绕着移民相关的困难还有问题，我们就会说这本书的 theme 是非法移民的问题。
This is when people move to a new country without official permission. Okay? So this is just describing what we were talking about before, illegal immigration. We have two important words here. The first is official. Now, official is an adjective, and when something is official, it is formal and public. We often use official to talk about names. So Taiwan's official name is the Republic of China, even though most of us call it Taiwan at the moment. Meanwhile, I'm from Britain, but the official name of my country is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We don't use that full name all the time because it's very long. We normally just say the UK, Britain, England. Okay, so we don't just necessarily have to use official to talk about names, though. We talked about official permission in the article, and so that's permission that comes from the government or a big important organization, you know? So it's not just that a police officer said, to MT, you can come into the country. And because he said it, she can come in.
It has to be the government.
The government gave some papers, they signed something, they followed an official process.
Procedure.
A procedure, exactly. And this is our example sentence for official. Most people at my company call Margaret boss, but her official title is head of sales. We also have this word permission, which we've said a couple of times now. We'll get onto that in a second, though. Nikki, I think you were about to talk about illegal immigration, weren't you?
Yes. 接着课文就进而说明了什么是 illegal immigration， 意思就是没有官方正式的允许来到这个国家。Official 是形容词，官方的、正式的。那在这边课文指的就是非法移民呢，他们是没有拿到这些政府所给的文件，说你是正式的公民，所以他们才会是 illegal immigration。那的 official 还有另一个公开的意思，可能有一件事原本大家不知道，后来公布了，它就变成 official. For example, their engagement is now official.
Exactly. Okay, so next we have this word permission. Now, permission is a noun, and when you have permission for something, you're allowed to do it. If you want to go on a school trip, for example, you'll need to get permission from your parents. If we give someone permission, then we let them do something. We say it is okay for them to do that thing. We have a slight... So, for example, let's think. If I was going to give Nikki permission to speak, if I was a judge, for example, and I gave Nikki permission to speak, then I was saying that it's okay for her to speak now. We would normally use give permission normally when somebody is in a position of power or when it is something official. We don't normally say that one friend gives another friend permission to do something.
I give you permission to be my friend.
Exactly. It sounds a little bit weird, like I can't...
Who are you?
Exactly, like you think that you're more important than me. Anyway, let's look at an example sentence here. You need to get permission first if you want to borrow this equipment.
Permission 是名词，指的是许可或是允许。像是我们今天如果想要打开某个 Google 的文件，但是它不是开放给每个人都能看的，那我们可能就必须要 ask for permission， 要求许可才有办法看。那它的动词是 permit， 意思就是允许或者是准许 to allow something or to make something possible。所以例句就说，如果你想要借这个器材的话，你必须要先取得许可。
Exactly. So the article continues, Andrea approaches the issue through the story of MT, a relatable, all-American girl who is actually an immigrant. Okay, so she starts talking about this issue. She approaches this issue. When we approach a subject or an issue, we bring it up or we talk about it, especially from a specific angle.
这个作者呢，就借由 MT 这样的一个角色来去针对这些议题讨论。Issue 指的是一个问题或者是议题 ，a subject that people are thinking and talking about. For example, environmental issues or ethical issues.
Exactly. So we called MT a relatable girl. Now, when we talk about someone being relatable, that's an adjective, we're saying that they are easy to relate to. So that means that their personality is similar to ours, or we can imagine that person being our friend. Okay, so sometimes some popular pop stars, for example, you might like them because you think they are relatable. Okay, so Nikki, can you think of any musicians or pop stars that you think are quite relatable?
Oh, do you know there's a Taiwanese singer, Lu Guangzhong.
Lu Guangzhong.
Yeah, so it's like big glasses.
Is that Crowd Lu?
Yeah.
I was just thinking of Crowd Lu, but I haven't seen a lot of his interviews, so I don't know his personality.
I mean, like, he's always talking about breakfast.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a very relatable topic.
Yeah, like his songs about breakfast. So who talks about breakfast? But we have breakfast every day.
We do. We all have breakfast.
So
that's very,
really
very true.
Relatable, right?
Yes, exactly. Relatable doesn't just have to be ordinary day things, though. It can just be anything that we think could happen in our lives. So you could see a very sad movie and the storyline could be very relatable to you because your life is similar. And so you find it a very powerful movie to watch. So we're saying here that MT is easy to relate to, okay? So let's move on to the next line of the story. By doing this, Andrea reminds us that immigrants are all around us, and they sometimes have to face many difficulties.
And the article says, as the story continues, we find a second very important theme, depression. 那在这篇故事中呢，还有第二个也相当重要的主题，就是 depression, 忧郁症。Depression is a kind of mental illness. If you're having a hard time falling asleep or you lose interest in the things that used to make you happy, it is possible that you're suffering from depression. If you are, be sure to get professional help. 那它的形容词呢 ，depression 的形容词是 depressed， 意思也是感觉忧郁或者是沮丧的。
Exactly. So MT struggles with dark thoughts and a sense of loss. Remember, dark thoughts there are the same kind of thing as the dark place we talked about in the last episode. So she's having difficult thoughts. She's having very sad thoughts at the moment. And she's struggling with a sense of loss. Now, loss is a noun, and loss is a feeling that you have when you no longer have something important. So we often talk about loss to talk about the experience of having someone close to you die. So, for example, Benjamin struggled greatly after the loss of his grandmother. He struggled with a sense of loss, okay? So that is probably the most common use we use. But loss doesn't necessarily have to be someone else's death. It's just when you lose something very, very important. So for MT, she isn't able to do any of the activities she wants to do. She can't achieve her dreams, and she's stuck in a place that she can't get out of. So she's struggling with a sense of loss, a sense that she doesn't have the things that she wants. Let's look at an example sentence now. After his mother died, James struggled to deal with the loss.
Loss 是名词，丧失或是损失。比如说今天可能朋友他就分手了，你要安慰他，你就会说哦没事啊，是他的损失 ，It's his loss。又或者是 loss 也可以用来代表一个人去世或者是死亡 ，the death of a person。所以通常我们就会对那些失去亲人或是朋友的人说 ，I'm so sorry for your loss。
Exactly. So the next sentence in the article is, This is made worse as she distances herself from others. Okay, when we talk about distancing ourselves from somebody, that means we put distance between us and someone else. And we're not so much talking about physical distance here. We're not talking about standing on the other side of a room. Instead, we're talking about creating having less of a close relationship, okay? So let's say, for example, that there is somebody in your classroom that you know is a bully. So you decide to distance yourself from the bully. You decide to stay away from the bully, not talk to the bully too much because you're worried that the bully might, hurt you or treat you badly. You're distancing yourself from the bully. So what MT is doing here is she is making herself have less contact, less connection with other people in her life. And next we read, after she visits the therapist, though, we see that all MT needed to do was open up.
那在 MT 看了心理医生接受咨商之后呢，我们就发现他其实所有需要做的事情只是打开心胸而已。All that somebody needs to or have to do is 什么事情是一个强调的句型，意思就是某人必须做的事情只有怎样怎样怎样。那 is 后面通常会加一个原形动词来修饰前面的那件事情。All that 等同于复合关系代名词 what， 所以课文其实可以改写成 We see that what MT needed to do was open up。那我们再看一个例句呢，说 The homework is very easy. All that you need to do is look up some words in the dictionary and write down what they mean。那课文在这边其实就是想要强调MT 只是需要试着let people in， 或许就能解决很多问题。
So the article continues, when she does this, she finds the strength to address her problems. Okay, she finds the power or she feels confident to address her problems. The article ends by saying, more people should be accepting of immigrants so that many more real-life MTs can find strength too. Right. It is always easier for us to tackle our problems when we have the help of other people or we can talk to people about our problems. That, unfortunately, is where we have to leave our article and our literature unit. It's been a lot of fun reading this story, very important story, and discussing it.
A lot of issues to be discussed.
Yes, I'm sure that you will have a lot to talk about in class now, but before you start your discussions, let's check out today's For You Chat question.
For You Chat. So today our For You Chat question is, do you know any immigrants or the children of immigrants? How much do you know about their stories?
I've met quite a lot of immigrants and children of immigrants especially. Actually, I have 4 cousins who are all the children of immigrants. I mean, they're British, but they live in other countries. So they aren't illegal immigrants, they're legal immigrants. But they have quite different experiences. Growing up, they went to a school that spoke one language and they spoke another language at home. And so their identity is kind of half British, half Spanish. They all live in Spain. However, that's not the same for everyone. It can be more difficult for other people. I had a friend who was an immigrant in China who came from the US, and they struggled quite a lot when they arrived because of a lot of the cultural differences, because they were an immigrant in China and they came from a very very different cultural background. They were treated differently and they found it very difficult to make friends. So for the year that they were in China, they felt very lonely and they stayed kind of to themselves and didn't have a lot of friends.
I feel like that must be very hard when you're a kid, right? Because you kind of don't know who you are.
Exactly.
People see you this way, but you think of yourself as that way.
Yes. Actually, at college yesterday, we were talking about this. It's called being what's called a third culture kid. A third culture kid is the child of someone of an immigrant who has to grow up in a very different society, or a child that moves around a lot when they are young to different cultures. And so they're always kind of in the international community, or they have this strange sense of not having somewhere that they really come from, because they grew up in lots of different experiences. Okay, well, that is all the time we have to talk about today's For You Chat question. If you are an immigrant yourself, perhaps you would like to share some of your experience. What are some things that you think that people don't realize about being an immigrant here in Taiwan that you would like to share? If you would like to share, it is your choice completely. Anyway, we will join you again soon for some more exciting articles. But for now, it's time to say goodbye. For English for You, I'm Seb.
I'm Nikki.
And we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
The Secret Side of Empty. The Secret Side of Empty is based on Maria E. Andrews' own experience as a former illegal immigrant in the U.S. What she created is a highly meaningful story that explores some of the more serious problems in modern society. The most noticeable theme in the story is illegal immigration. This is when people move to a new country without official permission. Andrew approaches the issue through the story of MT, a relatable all-American girl who is actually an immigrant. By doing this, Andrew reminds us that immigrants are all around us, and they sometimes have to face many difficulties. As the story continues, we find a second very important theme: depression. MT struggles with dark thoughts and a sense of loss. This is made worse as she distances herself from others. After she visits the therapist, though, we see that all MT needed to do was open up. When she does this, she finds the strength to address her problems. More people should be accepting of immigrants, so that many more real-life MTs can find strength too.
Vocabulary Review. Meaningful. For many people, having and raising a child is a meaningful experience. Explore. John wrote an essay exploring the many problems in society. Theme. In my book, the main theme is the experience of growing up in another country. Official. Because of COVID-19, people have to use official IDs in order to enter this university. Permission. I got permission from my boss to start working on a new project. Loss. Christine felt a deep sense of loss when her grandmother passed away.
智慧小补帖
Noticeable. Issue. Relatable. Depression.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net